Hayibo, khona into engasebenziwa apha. Awume kancinci. Ndiyazi ba intoni. I just want to check if it's I just want to check if it's live or not. Yeah, it's live. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen who've joined us on this Dr. Fundi channel. Today, we have an interesting conversation. We have an interesting conversation, and it's the first of our Salute Sundays, conversation. Yeah, so we are having a special guest, and our special guest is Dr. Ntokozo Dambuza. On a Salute Sunday conversation, we pick up one South African who's doing great things in their chosen, career or field. And we want to hear about how they got to where they are. But even before we talk about how did they get where they are, we need to know where do they come from? What are the kind of influences that shaped, her early, career, and what lessons has she learned about life, about being in academia, so we're gonna have a lovely conversation here today, and so let's just sit, get that popcorn or coffee or whatever. We're gonna have a lovely conversation here. Right, a little bit about our special guest, Dr. Ntokozo Dambuza. And Ntokozo is Zulu for happiness. So she also has to tell me, Wuti, how did they give a Zulu name, coming from Quebec, that is a PE. So yeah, that's our special guest, Dr. Ntokozo Dambuza. She's a world-class scientific researcher. She's a top academic as well, born and bred in Gqeberha, Port Elizabeth. However, in the early 80s, because her father was a reverend, they moved to Alice. That's the small town where University of Fort Hare is. So she grew up in Alice since the early 80s, went to primary school there, and then later on moved on to other places. But she's now back in Port Elizabeth, working at the Nelson Mandela University. She's a senior lecturer there at NMU, lecturing from undergraduate to postgraduate students. She supervises those who are doing postgrads, honors, masters, and even those who are doing PhDs. She's actually the head of the pharmacy research, at NMU. One of the responsibilities that have been added on her basket of responsibilities as a senior lecturer. NgokwesiXhosa siye sithi umuntu ofunde njengaye ufunde wayityekeza. Now she holds 4 academic degrees. All right. She has a BSc, majors in biochemistry and microbiology. It was still called UPE those days. That is the university where she got her undergrad. And it was not the usual 3-year BSc degree. It was an extended 4-year degree, and she majored in biochemistry and microbiology. She went further, decided to do an honors in biochemistry. After that, she went and did masters in biochemistry. So this biochemistry is a common thread from undergrad to honors to masters. She needs to tell us that love for biochemistry. Where did it come from, she then decided, no, I can't have all my degrees from the same university. She then went to UCT, where she decided to do a PhD in medicine, clinical pharmacology. So, you can see there behind her, So, but she is not done. Because, some of us, we thought, when you get to PhD, that's it. No. Wapinde wabuyela NMU, when they doctor a postdoc, postdoc research and all of that, and other people like her end up getting another PhD. So I'll ask her if she has an aspiration to actually have another PhD, or, because a brain like hers, somebody who got a PhD at the age of 35. She had not even been 50, she was just a month or so from being 35, and she got a PhD. And she is in her early 40s, and they say life begins at 40. And we can see on a Facebook page that definitely life began at 40, very, very active. When I looked at the photos of her Facebook page, she is running and running, 2 oceans here, comrades here, every day, even today. She started by running before she went to church. And then, only when she came back from church did she then, be like other people like us, So she started with running, followed with church. She can't not go to church. She's a daughter, last-born daughter of a reverend. So, welcome to the Dr. Fundi channel.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you.
Right. So man is a dog, man, is supposed to English, so that is of So, Doc, I've already told our viewers that you were born and bred Apo Ekreg, that is Port Elizabeth. Where in PE, Kumagaki, what do you see, New Bright, Kwazakele, or the suburbs? I don't know, but I think those days in 1978, Black people were not allowed to own properties in the suburbs. So where were you born? In PE?
A New Brighton, Doc. My mother is from Elaline Bomvu. But she lived in New Brighton when I was born.
Okay, all right. Now that's a tourist area, red location. It's one of those places that have got a lot of history for Port Elizabeth. So you were born at the red location in New Bright.
In New Brighton.
When we were at high school, I was at St. John's College, Mthat. I used to look forward to seeing Ibai, because people say Ibai was a New Bright, but Ferguson, but Ford, about Ogamlana, so that's where you were born and bred, but you guys moved to Alice. Tell us a little, about your family first, as in, how many are you in your family, as siblings, Utata wako, I've already said, wayemfundisi, and your mom was a professional nurse. Tell us a little bit about that nuclear family.
Okay, now, Doc, at home, there's 4 of us. We were given a bonus child afterwards. So in total, there's about 5 children. But from my mother and my father, there's 4 of us. Our eldest sister is much older than us. Yeah. So I grew up, people used to say, I've got a mind, the things that I used to like to do were things that are supposed to be known by old people. It's an influence of my eldest sister. So there's 4 of us. My sister Pumla is the firstborn, who is 13 years older than me. And then my sister Sibu is the secondborn. and then Charles, my only brother, and then me. Then 6 years later, Nadia came as a gift from Pumla. My parents adopted her, so she became number 5. So there's 5 of us, and we lived at Post. Seeing that you were mentioning all the areas in PE, I was born at Postville in New Brighton. Yes. So my mom was a nurse. And my dad was a pastor. So, but at that time he wasn't pastoring a church, but he was working for an organization called Scripture Union.
Oh, lovely, 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 lovely. Okay, Doc. So, uzalelwe kulo mzi where umama ngapha ines, uthetha nge-yes, ne-patience. And on the other hand, unotata oyipastor. Uthetha so you are the last born, very young compared to the firstborn. So kudla ngokubakho certain behaviors ezihamba nokuba undawnina, where are you in the hierarchy your siblings? Now, as the last born, there's certain behaviors that are associated with last borns. Are you a typical last born now, as compared to usisi lo qala deputy parent?
My father had a name that he used to call me Nokatiko. Because I was the firstborn by behavior. I'm a bully in the family. If there's any decision that needs to be made, all questions come here.
Why?
I have no idea, honestly don't know, but I was never spoiled. As a result, I cannot stand a spoiled person. I was never spoiled, but I used to engage, in everything. I had a behavior of ndomdala, So I carried that with me even in high school. I had that behavior. Then varsity, somehow I think I used to think far ahead than others, And my sister Sibu and myself, she's more quieter, I'm more louder, I'm more chatty and more louder. So I used to say and make decisions. And if she approves, she'll keep quiet. But if she doesn't approve, she'll say it politely that, no, you know what, let's wait for mama to make the decision, So I don't know how that happened, but I happened to jump everyone and I just went to the top and I became the firstborn, So, but I was blessed enough not to, they gave me grace in my siblings. Nobody attacked me for it. Nobody claimed their position. Like Usis Pumla, I still call her Sisi. So she knew that I respected her as an elderly person, but I was just fast moving, So how was that last born?
Beautiful. So you are not the typical spoiled, manipulative last born. You made yourself ube deputy parent othile on decision making involved kuyo. All right, so Doc, so you were this tight-knit family with utata as pastor, umama as unesi. Just tell us a little bit though about growing up in a household apho utata angumfundisi. And I don't want you to go to town because I know you and me can talk a lot, but just a little bit about ukukhula apho utata ngumfundisi and umama ungunesi.
You know what, Doc? It was a blessing. It was a blessing. Having a mother who's a nurse, it means there's a lot of hygiene in the house. So, which means from teeth, taking care and washing and all of that, because my mother was a school nurse. Yes. So we had to wash every day and I hated it, because I'm thinking, I'm clean from yesterday, why must I wash? But there was a lot of hygiene at home because my mother was a school nurse.
Yes.
From my father's side, there was a lot of values and principles that were instilled. I won't say they were forced, because my parents were never forceful.
Yes.
They just lived them. As a result, it was easy for us to copy what they were doing.
Yes.
And they talked with us. My father was a man of few words.
Yes.
Even though when he goes to church, he will preach.
Washiyela wena lo mazwi maninzi what iquota yakhe yathathwa nguwe.
Yathathwa ndim. He was never. My mother was a disciplinarian. My dad was not a disciplinarian. We were one of the. If we were naughty, the spanking will come from my mother.
Yes.
And not my dad. Very few times when my dad would say "Komazela," and he will take a belt and 1, 2, 3, and then that will be it, you know.
Yeah.
So, but my father, if he is quiet, and you can see the disappointment in his face, it used to break my heart into pieces, because he was a good man. And now, one thing, and without undermining the families that we grew up around, I used to see other fathers in the neighborhood. They used to drink.
Yes.
And and at home there was no alcohol, even though when my uncles come and visit, they would bring their whiskeys, and my father would just get them, because they're his brothers. But at home there was no alcohol. So I can never say I've seen my father drunk, because I've never seen him taking alcohol. So for me, I used to take pride in the fact that my father doesn't drink, and my father is the pastor, and I remember one time I once said, I don't want to go to your church anymore. It takes a long time. I'm going to go to the Anglican church, because the Anglican church used to be 1 hour and our church used to be long. And my father laughed and he let me go, And then one day he just said gently, he said, "You know what, this week you need to come to your home church now." And I never really, so he was never someone who was forceful or who was very strict. He was just gentle and loving. Unlike my mother can throw a shoe at you. My mother can chase you with a broom. But my dad was so we had two opposite parents, but they were both loving, and they
complemented each other with parenting.
Yes, they complemented each other.
Okay, Doc. So early days, ukhula, what did you want to be? Silakubabuza abantwana ba xa udala ufuna intoni, athi hayi ndifuna lijoni, hayi ndifuna lipolisa, I want to be this, I want to be that. What did you want to be before you became an adult, okwazi ukucinga? Growing up, Papa 5, 6, 7, what did you want to be?
One thing I didn't want to be was a nurse. I didn't want to be a nurse because my mother used to go to work at 7 o'clock, and the idea of waking up that early was like, I will never be a nurse. I didn't want to be a pastor because my father was traveling a lot. And the idea of him being away a lot, it just was not appealing. Yes. But as I said, remember I said I had a sister that was much older than me. Yes. So the things that we used to watch on TV were not cartoons. We used to watch real series, or Remington Steele or Airwolf, or, all those old series that used to have a simulcast. Yeah. So we used to watch those things. So I used to enjoy MacGyver and Airwolf. And I think there was also a movie by Chuck Norris, Delta Force, and Missing in Action. Those were my programs. And there was something fascinating about there was the pilots were my heroes. Because the way they would pick up the soldiers and then they would fly in an angle. And so I used to watch and I'm like, one day I'm going to be a pilot. And to be honest with you, Doc, I still, in my next life, I think I would be, if someone were to say to me, here's a package, go and learn to be a pilot, I think I'll take it because I still have that desire. Some human out there, I don't know who it was, discouraged me because even my subject choice, I could still have gone through that route. But somehow there's this human that I don't remember. And I think it's a good thing I don't remember because I'll probably despise that person. But someone said something that made me, just I just became now not motivated.
Yeah.
But then I got to high school, then there was this in thing about doctors. And my mom used to talk a lot about the doctors that he used to work with. That she used to work with.
Why is it living cinema? Provincial.
She trained in Livingston, but she was stationed in a clinic in KwaZakhele.
Oh, which one? Yeah. The clinic was into the TB, KwaZakhele, nase New Bright, nase Zwide.
There was a clinic that was in KwaZakhele. I don't remember, where it was, but she was stationed there.
Yeah.
And she used to have these lovely stories about the doctors and their mannerism, and and she had this favorite doctor that and she would imitate how they walk and how they'll come and fix the problem. So somehow that seemed appealing. Now I thought, okay, I think I'm going to be a doctor. Seeing that I'm not going to be a pilot, I'm going to be a doctor. Definitely not a nurse, but I'm going to be a doctor. But I think I had a passion for science. Yes. I don't know where that came from, but it was there. I had a passion for science. So my dream was to become a doctor. And I carried that dream all the way to matric.
And here you were looking at being a medical doctor, not a doctor PhD. Like you are now. But at least
I wanted to be you.
You still carried that. You still carried the doctor thing because you are a doctor now, but just not a doctor of medicine. Well,
I wanted to be like you.
All right. Yes.
Yeah. So I carried that dream all the way to matric, and every decision I made in high school was around that plan. That when I finish matric, I'm going to go to University of Natal and I'm going to do my medicine there, my MPCHP there. So that was the plan. It's just that, we sent our letters for application, and when the forms came, it was past the due date for medicine. Because I think we sent out our applications in June because I had to take my forms home because I was in boarding school, so they were sent while I was at school. So I only gave my father the forms to fill in the parents' part in June, and it was already too late. So I missed that chance to go to
God works in mysterious ways because you had your plans when, but God had other plans. Which we want a different type of doctor from this lady. We will just mess her up a little bit so that she ends up not going to become a medical doctor, but she becomes a different type of doctor. Now, Doc, you mentioned something about the values zasekhaya, that umama was that person, Udeti was that person who actually, I would say instilled and lived values as Tile, and you guys, without being forced, you actually, followed suit. I would like to know just about, 3 or 4 of the values zasekhaya as Sakubayo Nango.
Sure. Where do I begin?
Involved, obviously.
Yes, education, definitely education, because that was not negotiable. And respect. I'm very, I react very quickly when I watch a young child disrespectful to an older person. And having that prefix, I always have people saying to me, I'm Mansunbiza Sisi, then I'm done, and then I look at him thinking, yo, you are 10 years older than me. There's no way I'm gonna call you by your first name, So respect. That is one of the values that my father really instilled on me. And I must say, being ethical. being ethical and being a person of integrity. My father was a very ethical person, you know, and I remember I'll make an example, Doc. We were driving at night, and it was very late at night, probably close to after 12. We were coming from a convention, so we're coming from out of town, and we dropped people, and then now we're driving home. So the robots will go red, and then my father stopped, and then take off again, and then stop, and then take off again. And then my sister was like, "You are Tata, why can't you just drive through? No one's going to see you." And my dad says, "No, that's against the law. You must always make sure that even when people are not looking, you do things the right way." I never thought that, because I get scared of taking shortcuts. I get scared of breaking the law. I get scared of doing something that will get me into trouble. If I get caught, I don't want people to know I made this mistake. So I ran away from things that are going to cause people to talk, you know, even though sometimes they just happen in your life and then people talk, but not intentionally. So I have held on to being ethical, an ethical person, principled person, and just a person of integrity.
Yes. Obviously, fear of the creator, it must come naturally. So, siskolo, respect of other human beings, and also the issue of high ethical, values. Right, integrity being the main one there. Maybe that's why popular research don't that thing we had where people you're head of the pharmacy research, and people was they send proposals to do PhDs and ethical committees. I'm sure you're playing a part, almost.
Not in the ethics committee, but in the postgraduate. So before Ziegwe ethics is Galagut.
Okay.
So siyayijonga siqonda into yobana uzawuqunjelwa ngabantu basekuhlaleni. So we do discuss if things are ethical, but I think our students and our staff members understand that. So we don't really have those many issues, but we do discuss around things. There are proposals where we realize, one is really not such a, it doesn't require that much interrogation. But then the proposal where we feel, we need another committee now to interrogate this one. So it moves higher now to the human or animal ethics, because we do animal work as well. So we take to the right committee. Then if it passes there, because the people there are more stricter than us, and they have more information and more training than us, so they will be able to interrogate your protocol. And if they feel that, I think this one can be allowed to go through, so then it passes.
Yeah, something that happened to me when I was doing my standard 9, which is now grade 11. Although all the time, I wanted to go, but that's I was confused. Grade 11, go engineering, don't. So when did you get any confusion about yes, ma'am, but when did you as you were looking for maybe an alternative to medicine, did you get confused in terms of choice? I think on Friday when we spoke, you mentioned that there's some discipline that nearly confused you.
No, there was really not that much confusion, to be honest with you, because in my application, I knew that there was MPCHB, and then there was BSc.
Yes.
So, and another thing that I did, I used to read through the curriculum for MPCHB, and I saw that, okay, they've got chemistry, they've got physics, they've got this, they've got that. So if I don't get into BSc, into medicine, I'll go to BSc. And maybe BSc will give me a better chance to go to medicine. I still want, even after my third year, I still wanted to become a doctor because I applied again with my results, my third year results. I applied again to become. So the dream of becoming a doctor, it lingered for a long time. And it stopped because I guess God forced me to a different direction, not because I made that choice. I was left, without any choice. So I went to be a
Lovely, lovely, lovely talk. So if you just summarize your secondary schooling, what kind of a student were you? I mean, there's sports, there's debating, there's academics, there's this and that. What kind of a student were you in high school?
In high school, Doc, I was a star student in all areas. In sports, I was very athletic. I was a sprinter. So I had that. In class, I was I won't call myself a top student, but I was among the top 5 in class. And I was a very dedicated, I was never a naughty child. And the matron, one time I bunked church because I forgot to take down my black skirt from the line. So I didn't have something to wear at church. And I was like, we're going to be punished. If the patron sees me, he's gone. So I went and I hid. So someone told the matron that I also bunked church. So the matron was like, hey, you are a child of a pastor. How can you hide under the bed? Are you worshiping a God under the bed? So some things, if I do something wrong, everyone will be shocked. They'll be like, because nobody expected me to do anything wrong. So I was a really disciplined child, and I was also very athletic. I was a sprinter, I would just disappear out of the thin air, So those were the two things that I can say. And I think if I can say so myself, I had favor, when it comes to teachers, I can never say that teacher didn't like me. I had that kind of favor. I was loved by my teachers.
So, Doc, just a question from somebody who doesn't know these things. So, being a child young Fundis, is there any pressure to keep that image when you interact with other people out there as you are growing up?
Can I
to be the ideal child? Because kukabanye abantwana babefundisi man bangene ebhotileni kakhulu benza izinto.
Well, the pressure didn't come from my home.
Yes.
It came from outside. For example, I used to sing Whitney Houston songs.
Yeah.
And I would sing and I would feel the song. I would close my eyes and I would smile. And then people were like, you're singing these songs and yet you're a child of a pastor. So, and I'm thinking, well, my sister plays it at home and my dad doesn't stop her. So, so I never, if there's one thing, there was something in me that used to be resilient to criticism.
Yeah.
There was no criticism that would crush me, If I like something, I like it, as long as my mom likes it too. So no one else would tell me anything otherwise. There was really no pressure. And even though other kids did things, there was no way you would find me doing those things. Just out of reverence for my parents, I knew they'll be disappointed. And I never used to even be tempted to join. I would just stay away, because I knew it was trouble. So I'll stay away. So I have always modeled that image, that, I was this innocent person.
Yeah.
And I was never associated with anything. The one time that I was sent to the principal's office for not coming home, I went there with an ease, because other kids, they will have to go bring their parents, and the parents must tell, because we used to have permission slip most. You must get a permission slip. So your parents must request you from the principal. And it just happened that this one time I went home and my dad was in an accident. And therefore, I didn't come back. I stayed the whole weekend and I came back on a Monday afternoon. So when I went to the principal's office, I just went there with ease. And I was like, okay, if he's going to ask me to call my father, I'm going to say, okay, my father is still in hospital. You can go, you can call him there, And my parents knew everything I was doing. So if the principal sees it as something wrong, that when she calls my father will be like, I know. So and my principal respected my dad. So if my father knew, then there wasn't going to be any debate. So those were the only times I'll get into trouble. I'll get into trouble with my father's knowledge about that trouble.
Yes. Okay, Doc. So maybe so you get to UPE after the forms and whatever, things didn't happen, so you didn't go to Natal because it was too late for you to apply. So you decide, okay, I'm gonna do EPSC and UPE. And so you went to UPE. Now, which year is this?
1996.
Okay, that's the year I left PE for Johannesburg. Now, yeah, so Doc, life at UPE and PE Tech at that time, it was very nice. We used to attend hectic parties there. Now there you are coming from Alice. Yes, you went to some. Was it a private school or model school that you went to now?
No, it was a public school. It was a boarding school, St. Matthew's. It's a missionary school.
Yes. So you get to university, and we are from a missionary school, a boarding. And umntana kamfundisi uzawufumana freedom yakho man ngoku akho mntu uzobe ejonge your goings in and out and all of that. You could bunk lectures if you want. So how was that transition?
It wasn't so, but you know what? My father was very strategic, because when I gave my forms to sign, he picked them. There were ones that he didn't sign. For instance, University of Natal, he didn't sign those forms. University of Cape Town, he didn't sign those forms. He only signed 3 forms. UWC, because my sister was already there. University of Fort Hare, because it was down the road. And UPE, because my mother's entire family, all her siblings are in PE. So I was not going to be in some place far away with no one to care for me. So he knew that there was some form of accountability. Yeah. My uncle was not going to bump into me in a place that shouldn't be there. But despite that, even though in res there were bashes, there were parties, there were you not talking dance we fellowship, we Christian fellowship. Friday night I used to go to a Christian fellowship and we would sing songs,
Oh, SCF?
No, the FCF Family Christian Fellowship. It was called FCF.
Okay, all right. At least Waulandela as Nyawe is Gatat, Ukula and Wasemoyi. All right, so you got in, Doc. How did you decide? Would you take Kule BSc? I am actually going to do biochem. And what's the other one now? Microbiology as my majors. How did it come, that you chose those two to be your majors?
Because they were also in the curriculum of a medical degree, curriculum. So I chose everything that I did at varsity based on what, because there was this saying that if you have a PhD, if you have a BSc, they will credit you, you won't have to do everything, when you get there.
Yes, which is true. I mean, it does happen. There's a lady who has a master's degree who's always wanted to be a doctor. And then after matric, she couldn't get admission. She went and did a BSc, applied again, no admission. She did an honors, no admission, and then she did a master's. Eventually, she then got to be admitted by Wits University from from third year, all right? And so she was credited with some of the courses from both undergrad and also the postgrad. So it does happen, yeah.
Well, the thing is, Prof. Doc, after my honors, I wanted nothing to do with undergraduate. I was fed up with school. I was just tired.
Yeah.
And I think my journey as an undergraduate, it was not an easy one, because remember, I was coming from a high school in a rural area where if you don't know, for instance, you're looking at the structure of a heart and the teacher explaining how a heart works, you lift your hand and you say, sorry, say, and he will explain Xhosa. So I came from that culture where my knowledge was explained to me in my home language. So now you come to an environment where everything is first language English. It's being taught in English. And now you have to, adjust to that. So it wasn't easy. As a result, I used to master all the physical sciences, like mathematics, physics, chemistry. I used to get those right. But when it comes to biological sciences, because they were full of theory, and those texts were like Shakespeare books, So when you read a page and thinking, I have no idea what these people are saying, and you have to read it again. So it became a bit slow. I became a bit slow now because I was adjusting to this new environment. I had no Xhosa teacher to explain these things to me in Xhosa. I had to go to this white lecturer, and sometimes I can't even express myself and express what I need to know. So they don't even understand what I'm asking about. And sometimes you just get intimidated because they look at you with glasses like this and you're thinking, let me leave, So you get intimidated and you end up not asking any questions. So that was, for me, that was one of the sore parts of being an undergraduate student, was finding yourself now, when there's a shift in your image of yourself. And suddenly you're not looking at yourself the way you used to see yourself, as this star person.
This top five student who now has come to the tertiary, and we are so on.
Hey, my confidence dropped. At some point, I believed I was stupid. I was sure that I was stupid. And I was like, but no, man. I used to get 100 out of 100 in high school. How did I get 30 out of 100?
Well, education, sometimes it humbles. So, okay, Doc, so there you were, you did your biochem, you did your microbiology because you still had the idea of going to do medicine. But most of what you were majoring in was also stuff that requires a lab, and I look at you now, if I look at space also, there's a lot of research work, a laboratory you spent, and I'm even trying to reconcile this person who's done so much work or who continues to do so much work, a lab, and this person, because it's usually introverts, when you are not an introvert. Kodwa ucomfortable by lab. Just
Hey, Doc, I'm an introvert, extrovert, if there's anything like that.
No, my son actually told me, but we don't try introvert, extrovert.
I think I'm one of them because I never wanted to work with people. I think for me, the dream of becoming a doctor, when it wasn't realized, finding myself in a laboratory setting, it's sort of like put a bandage on that. I never thought about it afterwards.
Yes.
It cleared it out of my system.
Yes.
Because you see, this is what happens, and I preach it to my colleagues and to my students, that people think that you need to be a top student for you to be a good researcher. And there's a lot of things that cause a student not to be a top student, but they're definitely not foolish. They're not dumb. You know, for me, I discovered that I was fast, I was quick. I caught things very quickly in the laboratory. It was my safe place. It was a place where I could find myself, I could grow. It was my place of confidence, was in the laboratory. While I was still an undergraduate student, it was a place where I was happy. As a result, even though at some point my academic record started getting messed up because theory was just killing me. I was just failing, but I would master the practical part. But the theory part, you know, I would just fail it dismally, you know. So when I did my third year, because second year, let's start with second year. I passed my year, passed it with distinctions because it was mostly physical science type of subjects. And then I went to second year. Second year, I did microbiology, biochemistry, and zoology. Failed all three of them. My prac mark, it was beautiful. It was shining. But the theory, I failed dismal, miserably. And obviously with my father there, because he said to me, do you want to continue? Do you want to do it again? You know, you can still do it. And I said, are you sure? Are you going to pay for it? And he said, I'll make sure I'll pay for it. So now I decided I'm going to drop zoology and I'm going to take chemistry, because now I think with zoology, somehow I realized I don't think I'm going to pass this module. It's too much for me. Let me rather balance this. Biochemistry has some chemistry in it, as theory and chemistry. Microbiology, full of theory and chemistry. So let me balance this, have a chemistry, theory, and then theory and chemistry and theory and chemistry. So I went back and I repeated my second year, and then I passed. So when I went to third year, now was the repetition of the second year. But even though I passed 60% of my modules, I still had modules that I had failed. So when I was repeating them, something told me that, first of all, you're not going to get into medical school, forget it. And secondly, you're not going to qualify to do postgraduate studies. You're not going to qualify to do postgraduate studies. And thirdly, it means you will only have a BSc. And when you look at all these companies that come and present their, you know, especially the ones that look for biochemistry and microbiology, they want people with experience. So you need to get experience. So because I was repeating, I wasn't doing everything. So I had a lot of free time. I went to one of the lecturers and I said, listen, don't you have anything there in the lab that I can help you with? I just want a little bit of experience. Can you just let me do some lab work with you? I'm good when it comes to using these tools. So can I come and join? And he said, oh, sure, come. And he was designing an experiment for honors students. So I went and I became his assistant. And he taught me how to do data recording, how to keep a lab journal. He taught me, how to do the calculations and all of that. So I was his assistant. So after my lectures, I'll run to the lab, go meet with him, and I will help him with all of that. And then when he was done with that, he asked another lecturer, don't you need someone to help you? Then I moved to the tissue culture lab, a cell lab, where you have to work with aseptic skills. You have to work sterilely. So there, the guys there, they started teaching me how to grow cells. And within no time, I was growing my cells. I wasn't getting any contamination. And at that moment, I realized that, you know what, I may have messed up with the other parts of my degree, but this one, I seem to be enjoying this, and I seem to be doing it right. So now my prayer was that, Lord, if only I could find myself in an environment where, because this is where my confidence is overflowing. And that is how I fell in love with laboratory work.
Lovely. Yeah. Okay. So, but I think there's something important that you mentioned, Doc, which I think for those people who are listening and those who will view this video later, the fact that sometimes we look at umuntu osele level une PhD, but you know, at some point, you failed subjects. I mean, 30% mark. That's not a good. Well, that's okay for Department of Basic Education, but not for Rutgers. But the point I'm trying to make is, at times, as we navigate life or navigate iskolo, you get to a point where sometimes kunzima. But if failure doesn't mean the end. If failure just means try and approach things differently. Try again. And indeed, you adjusted things, and here you are, on a PhD. So, but now there are some comments talk that I just want you to hear. Nedi Sambande says, I'm enjoying it. She's very lovely indeed. So she's listening on Facebook. She says, I'm enjoying this conversation so much. Ntokozo is a lovely person, Doc. Uti, no parties for you. Unyanisile, wawungazenzi party. And you were not attending parties when we are our FCF. Uti, you would have been an exceptional medical doctor, Doc. So shooting lost out with you not having followed the medical degree. And then upheliswa umabhanekazi Ntukathandwa uthi I'm sure her students love her in class. How are you in class? You are a senior lecturer. Ungene part-time, but in no time Makunika a full-time job in 2017. You are a full-time senior lecturer. How are you in class?
Yeah, you know what, Doc? I never wanted to be a lecturer. Remember, I said I'm an introvert, extrovert.
Yeah.
I'm a chatty person. I'm loud. I chat. I talk. But if there's one thing, remember, I said that I cannot stand someone who is disrespectful.
Yes.
And I used to, as growing up, I realized that you are kids of this generation now. They have too many rights, so I didn't think I was going to be patient enough to deal with. Yes. And another thing, I was not politically correct, I was going to be reported disciplinary hearing after another because I was going to discipline the children. Because I'm a disciplinarian, I'm more like my mother, I'm a disciplinarian. Yeah. So I happened to find myself teaching without that blindsided me. It was just, they were desperate. There was the dietetics class, because it was a new course at the university. So now the first generation was in its third year. And one of the modules in its third year was pharmacology, and they were looking for a pharmacology lecturer. And because I had announced myself, because I'm also very last, I went and I was like, you know what, just so you know, there's someone like me with these qualifications. If you need, someone to help in the laboratory or something, you must just call me. I never advertised myself as a lecturer, but as a lecturer. But they needed a lecturer. So, and at that time, I was doing my postdoc, I was earning a stipend. And sometimes with the stipend, there's a delay in the admin process. So I was scared of not having an income. So I okay, it's just 2 months. I will take it. I will teach, Yeah. And somehow there was a favor of God that came upon my life, because I can say things to students that other lecturers can't say. So my approach, I can have a whole session just disciplining them, But the thing is, because of my personality, there will be laughter in the process, There will be laughter in the process. But this is where now I came to realize that, what, God forced me to this direction. It was not a direction I chose. Is the fact that as a lecturer, remember I told you, I failed dismally in my undergraduate years. And at some point, my father said, but you're not dumb, you're not stupid. You just need to do it again, And that for me, and I remember for my third year, there was this module that I failed. And I remember repeating them. I was like, when I registered for them again, thinking, I don't think I'm going to pass these things again. But we had a new lecturer, and the approach she used
was different.
Liberated me, because I breezed through those modules. It was like a breeze, By the time I went to that Shakespeare textbook, I already knew what the topic was about, because of the foundation that was laid by the lecturer. So that for me took me to my degree. And in class now, I find students from the depths of the rural areas of Transkei. I find students from Zwide, from Vierplas, and they're not understood at all. And for me, the fact that they got into a BPharm degree, it means they do have this. It's just maybe the situations or circumstances are not really encouraging them.
Yeah.
First of all, the English language is difficult. The signal just disappears when you're tired mentally. That signal goes away, So I made sure that my method of teaching helps my student grasp the basic principles, so that by the time they go to the textbook, then they go there with an understanding. As a result, when a student comes to my office, because we do have political students, they will come to my office with that, attitude. One came with a red beret, and I said, take it off in my office. I'm not going to talk to you if you have that beret in my office. So they'll come to you with that attitude. And I'll sit down and I'll talk to them, and I'll change the direction of the conversation. By the time they leave, we're no longer talking about why he came to my office, And so I try to be as lenient as possible, but I enforce education to them. I know what their struggles are. I know which approach that I can use to make sure they get as much education as possible, understand it, and also find a way to express themselves when they're writing in them. As a result, Doc, I hardly have students that fail my sections, especially if I'm teaching the entire module. If they fail, it means they need to repeat it. If they fail, because I sell myself into making sure that those poor kids, if they fail, then I mustn't be counted amongst the ones that fail them. So as a result, I will have students that I've never taught coming to me, asking me for help, because students talk and they'll say, go to Dr. Dambuza, she'll listen to you, So I wouldn't call it a friendship, but I'm a storyteller, I'm a clown. My students, so even when I throw in discipline, they can't feel it, because it comes from a place of playfulness and and the joke, and but I'm very strict. They know I'm very strict. Sometimes they'll try, they're like, and I said, but I did tell you I'm not going to do it, So I used my experience, because I knew I wasn't stupid. but there was something that is causing my delay. So I made sure that I eliminate that from the students that I teach. I make sure quality of the content, because I'm teaching health science students. They're going to be healthcare workers. So the quality of the content that I'm teaching on, I force it down their throats. I force it down because that method worked for me. So I use it to them. I force it down. And then at the end of the day, when I assess them, I make sure I assess them thoroughly. So that, and they will write, and sometimes I will read what they wrote, and I'm thinking, this is not from this textbook. It comes from one of the jokes I shared in class. But you can see that they're getting it, they're getting it. They understand. It's just they don't know how to express this. Because, Xhosa or Black students, they have to translate that English to their home language for them to understand. Yes, and then when they have to write it again, then they have to write it in their home language and then translate it into English. So it's a slow process for them. It's not because it's a slow process. So I try to meet them halfway, but I expect hard work. I expect hard work. I expect kids that are going to sleep. So I expect hard. So I don't laugh with them, but I try to be the best that I can be for my students.
Now, Doc, let's move on a little bit. So time equals also than that. So I'm going to skip the honors in biochemistry, in biochem. I'll move straight to your masters. Powerful masters, you decided to do a study, on traditional medicines, right? Looking at the active ingredients of the various herbs that are used by traditional healers, which meant you needed to work so closely with traditional healers. So just tell us a little bit, what motivated you to choose that topic, the traditional healers, and researching, herbs zabo. Well, I'm asking you this question because it's also a common interest of mine in the space of traditional healing. My master's is also, I did a research on traditional healing broadly, when you were focusing on the herbal side of traditional healing. So what was the interest and what were your highlights out of that?
You know what, Doc? Actually, that area of research chose me. It chose me because, remember, I said earlier that I didn't qualify to do postgraduate studies.
Yeah.
Because my academic record was just a mess, but I applied anyway. We have faith, but I applied anyway. And while I was doing my voluntary work in the lab, one of the duties that I needed to do was to translate, because the traditional healers, I think it was around the time where they were being recognized. And so there were workshops that needed to be done to teach them about record keeping, about sterilization, and all of that. So we had to, formulate some documentation for them. So they needed a Xhosa speaking person, and I was available because I was already assisting them.
Yeah.
So I think this was Prof. Van der Venter. Then he was Dr. Van der Venter, and she was working closely with Mr. Mike Pansy. They were working together with the traditional healers. So I came on board as a translator, and I was doing my final year. So now there was a grant and there was a project for honors. And the person that fitted perfectly for that grant and project was me. So not only did I not qualify to get into the honors program, I was given a bursary as well. So I was given a bursary as well. So I just registered and I did my honors. So that is how now I got to be introduced to traditional medicine or maybe natural products, because then we can expand from that. That is how I got to be introduced. And then there was a plant that was known as cancer bush or kankerbos. Scientifically known as Sutherlandia frutescens. So there were studies around that as an anti-diabetic herb. So there were studies around that, and I had colleagues that were working on it on in vivo. So they were working with animals and they were doing studies on that. And then there was also an interest in anti-HIV, you know.
Anti-HIV was used a lot, you know, during the time, you know, when we were battling HIV in the early to mid 2000s. And the African potato, what they call African potato, actually contains Sutherlandia, you know. And so, but the problem with the impurities as such that Abba Clever, they then extracted this, you know, the Sutherlandia from the African potato, so that the other things that were not so good in the African potato, you know, were therefore removed from the tablets and whatever preparations. So you were working with Sutherlandia.
I was working with Sutherlandia because there was someone working with African potato, but my plant was the kankerbos, the cancer bush. And so I worked with it, and so the idea was to fractionate it, maybe hopefully identifying the active compound from the plant, because it was very potent. It was very potent against the enzymes that are involved in the successful multiplication of the HIV. So which means that, you know, the virus multiplies itself within your body. So there are those machinery that the virus uses.
Transcriptase, protease.
Protease, yes. So now it was easy to get reverse transcriptase. So my focus then was on reverse transcriptase. The HIV protease and integrase, that one was very expensive to do that part of the experiment. So my focus was mostly reverse transcriptase, and then I would use the raw material, the extract, and my fractions from the chromatography, all my fractions, and I would test them. And they were very potent. But because of time and I couldn't continue, I would have loved to take it further and you know, fractionate it even further. But obviously my time ran out. But it was very potent against reverse transcriptase. So that for me was really, really fascinating, you know, because you've got this extract, and even when you don't even use that much material, very as a nanomolar or nanograms concentration, it was still active against reverse transcriptase. So that for me was the highlight of that project, was the fact that there was some evidence that, you know, if you consume obviously we still have to get to the part of a dose, because that is important. Obviously the study didn't go all the way to getting into the molecular level. It stops in the middle or somewhere in the beginning. But obviously there was some evidence that it will make a contribution in someone who is HIV positive.
Yes, and I think the important point from what you just said is that, you know, there is a lot of ignorance out there where we just think that, you know, the herbs, the natural herbs that we have. I mean, South Africa is known as the 5th richest country in the world when it comes to indigenous plants with medicinal properties. All right. And there's still quite a number of herbs that have not been researched. So can you imagine if the type of research that you did can be done on some of these herbs that have been used by our forefathers for long, what contribution that would make, and also the economy that can come out of that, which would benefit South Africa and would export these things. So, so I just thought, let me just touch on that, because it's really an area, and WHO has actually encouraged countries to work closely with traditional healers like herbalists, because some of the drugs that we use today came from herbs. So why do we suddenly think that now there can't be new drugs that can come from herbs? So what you've just done, or what you just shared with us, actually proves the point that some of the herbs that that have been used for long, not studied, actually have the ingredients or the chemicals that are actually useful. Only what one needs is to research them further and take them to a process where they can actually be prescribed and used, right. Let's move from that, Doc. When you did your PhD at UCT, you decided to do research on drugs ezintsha zokulwa malaria, so anti-malarial drugs. Again, how did you get to be in a space where you thought, okay, I'm actually going to do this one? By the way, malaria is one of the top killers in the whole continent. And some of the drugs that we've used for decades are no longer, effective. So new drugs are needed to help fight malaria. So how did you get there?
Well, let me highlight something first, which I think maybe our listeners can grasp and maybe share with others. Every milestone or every success I've experienced in my life started from a point of desperation. I got desperate to a point that I went and I sought work as a volunteer. So starting with my entry as an honor student, I asked to be a volunteer in a lab. So I started as a volunteer. And when my skills were discovered and were marveled by the supervisors, they said, okay, we can give this grant to this person. So I advertised myself by working with no pay. So, and even when I got to England, when I was realizing that I'm not getting any jobs here, I went to a biochemistry lab and I said to them, listen, these are my skills. I can come and work 3 times a week and just help with the research there, whatever. I can pipette, I can do anything. I just wanted, so that when I write in my CV, I can say I worked in a lab, because now the gap was getting wider now in my CV. So, and then the HOD was like, who is this person? I like the CV. Can you call her again? So I was called, come, the boss wants to see you. So I sat down and with the HOD of King's College Hospital in London, the pathology lab. And then I was given something to do as a volunteer. And now the person I was assisting decided to leave. So I ended up taking over what he was doing. And the next thing, the agent come to me, I'm assigned forms, I'm getting paid. So that's how I got a job there. Same with UCT. I'm very impatient, Doc. If I apply for a job, I want an answer tomorrow.
Yes.
So it started with me being impatient because I was applying for, the thing is I didn't have a license. So all the jobs that were available wanted someone with a license because they were medical reps.
Yeah.
And they wanted someone with a license, but I didn't have a license. I was trying to get one, but I didn't have it. So I started applying CSIR, all these laboratories in South Africa, and I'll just put in, there was no jobs being advertised, I'll just put in my CV and send it through. And then there was a person who was in the MRC, the Medical Research Council page, and there was an email there as a contact person. So I emailed to that person, only to find out it was a professor at UCT who works in the malaria unit. And he emailed me and he said to me, firstly, it was a reject because there you need to have an insurance to work in their labs. And for you to get insurance, you need to be in the payroll. And then he wrote to me again. I said, listen, I'll only have funding next year, but I can fund you. I can pay you for 1 day a week. You can work the whole, and I'll pay you for 1 day a week. But at least you will be in the payroll and you will have insurance because you have so much skills. We don't need to train you at all. So come and see me. When I went to his office, suddenly he changed his tune and he said, okay, we've decided we're going to employ you full time. That's how I ended up in the division of pharmacology at UCT. I went there to volunteer myself, but suddenly they saw that, you know what, they could use my skill. They could use an extra person with my skill. And they didn't even have to train me because I knew how to do the work thoroughly, like through and through. So now I work as a technician. The samples will come from all over the world. We will grow blood with that is infected with malaria, both a resistant and a sensitive strain. And we will expose that blood to some different types of either plant extracts or drugs, and and then we will measure the efficacy of those drugs. So that's how it started. And one of the people that we were collaborating with was Professor Chibale from the organic chemistry. I'm sure you know him, who was one of the guys who spearheaded the discovery of the new anti-malaria drug here in Africa. So I used to get samples from him. And I think when I made a decision, because I got tired of doing routine work. I want more challenge. And I thought, you know what, if I can get a PhD, if I can do a PhD, and maybe along these lines, maybe. So I went to Prof. Smith and I said, listen, I want to do my PhD. So he brought in Professor Chibale, and Professor Chibale had a huge bank of drugs that need to be tested, not only in vitro, that is in the lab, in the test tube, but in vivo as well, in animals. That is how my pharmacology knowledge came, because now I moved away from in vitro and went to the whole animal, because now I have to study the pharmacological effect in a whole animal. So that is how I ended up doing, the anti-malaria drugs.
And then things went so well, and at some point before you finished, you were actually recognized and went and spent 3 months at Basel in Switzerland as some intern at Novartis. Just tell us a little bit about what that meant to you. Well, this is just before you finished your PhD.
It meant a lot, because remember, this whole pharmacology field was new to me. And I was discovering a lot of problems in my project. And one of them was almost to zero bioavailability. So which means the drug wasn't getting absorbed into the blood. And as a result, it will be like below levels of, quantitation. So which means my drugs are not getting detected at all. And then people started talking about the solubility of the drugs. Maybe it's because they're not soluble, maybe, So I started getting now curious about formulations. I started getting curious about formulation. What types of formulations are there? What can I try to make these drugs at least deliverable to the circulation? And when the guys from Basel decided that they're going to do this program So they contacted different heads, and they said they're looking for masters and PhD students to come and explore. And these are the projects that they have. And one of those projects was formulation development in an R&D lab there in Basel. So Professor Gary Martins from UCT came to me and he said to me, listen, do you want to go? At that time, my father was very sick. So I was reluctant, but then I thought my father would kill me if I say no. Doesn't matter how sick he is, he will not be impressed if I say no. So I said, okay, I do. And he said, okay, then write a summary of a proposal and then email it to me. So I wrote a proposal, summary, and then I forwarded to him. He forwarded to the guys in Basel, and the guys in Basel sent me an application form. So I applied and I was interviewed and selected. So then now I had to go to Basel. And this is now just after I had buried my father. I had to go to Basel. And so I met my mentor there, Dr. Christoph Meyer, who was in charge of the formulation development, project there. And it was so amazing, Doc. I learned a lot. I think that 3 months is one of the experiences that really put a stars on my CV, because I got, within a space of 3 months, I got introduced to what's this? There's a study known as Compatibility Studies. Compatibility study, because your drug doesn't come as the actual API. It is mixed with other ingredients. Those ingredients, they have a role that they play, in making sure that your drug is, so now compatibility studies are making sure that these excipients are not destroying the quality of the API. They're not producing products that could be toxic or that could be, because they're going to interact, they're all chemicals. So they're going to bandana together and produce wrong babies. So that for me was the major part of my project. And then from there, while we were incubating, because we're incubating a different, because malaria is a disease that you find in mostly humid areas and studying the area where they are prevalent is important. So what happened was that those mixtures, they had to be incubated in a mimicked environment so that we can see, if I take a drug to mid-Africa, obviously the temperature there is not the same as South Africa. In that temperature, will that drug stay effective? Will it keep its efficacy? So that was now what I was taught there. Packaging, the importance of packaging. Why do you use foil sometimes? Why do you use plastic sometimes? Drug delivery, why do you have dispersible drugs? And why some drugs you just swallow them, And then another thing also, the dissolution studies, how long does it take when you swallow a drug? How long does it take for it to dissolve in the stomach? And complex studies, how does a compression, how does it influence the rate at which the drug dissolves in the stomach? So there were a lot of things that I learned from there. When I left, even though none of those things I used in my project, but man, I went home with so much wealth. And even I still use that even today. When I supervise our 4th year projects, I make sure that we that information, I talk about it with them. And when we choose projects, and so that experience, it was a godsend.
It was a game changer for you.
It changed everything for me. It really never contributed much to my PhD, except for being recognized and having contacts. But it added so much knowledge for me, to a point that whenever I have to design a project, that information helps me a lot. And I can incorporate it in that project, so that then I can tell my students, okay, then we're going to do, these kind of studies. And also teaching them, now I understand why the studies are being done, because I got to be introduced in a more practical manner.
Wow. So, Doc, round up. But what I want to know, though, there's two things that Fuza is good. One, you've got this very active lifestyle. Ubaleka yonke imihla uleka into esingayiboniyo. You are actually almost addicted to the happy hormones of exercise. My colleague Andile Bovungana apho eGqeberha, he is with another group.
Ifugani.
He is with Ifugani, and now you are with the Crusaders. But just tell us a little bit about this lifestyle. Is it because there are certain conditions? I mean, you don't have to disclose the impilo yako talk. I mean, but in general, what motivated you to actually take up this active lifestyle? 2 oceans, and there at PE, there's just so many of these races. Sometimes you even race against trains there in PE. So just tell us a little bit about this active lifestyle, because we've been talking academia and stuff, and you've done very well. But as human beings, we need to be balanced. We need to be balanced, our lifestyles, our spirituality, the core work. So I see this leg of sports, that part of you that you did not pursue as a sprinter. I see it now with you running boat to ocean. Just tell us a little bit about that.
It's called midlife crisis. No, you know what? 2011, I was just approached by some group scheme or mutual guy and wanted to do insurance with me. So I thought, you know what, maybe it's time to think about life insurance. So I had to go for blood work, Everything else was 100% good. I was healthy, except for one thing. They said I was obese.
That's a BMI of 50 and above.
They said I was obese, and I was not impressed at all. I was so offended by that. So that's when I joined gym. That's when I joined the gym. But I wasn't really, it was just so that I get moving, and that's it. Then fast forward now to 2014 or 2015, fast forward to 2014. I moved to PE. I didn't have a car, and it was not easy to go to gym. So I canceled my membership, canceled my membership. But then what happened was that there was one celebrity, I think 2 celebrities died. And the first one was, who's this guy? Uvuyombuli and Edizondi. They died of a sudden heart attack or something, or embolism. And something.
The pulmonary embolism, Uvuyo. Edizondi, I'm not sure. I think it was a heart attack. What is known for the heart attack?
And I remember sitting down and I'm thinking, I come from a family of diabetics and hypertensive people. And if I don't face reality, I'm going to end up with this Kraftinas Kamamas Nepilises in 2011. I do not know, most of our parents, they have those at this Tupperware type of thing that is full of tablets. So I said to myself, no, I need to find it. Even though I had that, I wasn't passionate about it. And another thing, Doc, when I arrived in Cape Town 2008, I was diagnosed with lymphedema.
Yes.
on my left leg. And
Yeah.
I remember a day I was given a compression stocking.
Yeah.
And they gave me a pamphlet with some information. And it said that I cannot run or walk more than 5 kilometers. So I convinced myself that, you know what, those big walk or fun runs, I'll just do that, you know. So when Edizondi and Vyombuli, I think it was Vyombuli first and then Edizondi.
Yeah.
When Edizondi died, I decided, let me at least do the park runs. Let me start there, do the park runs, maybe walk, because I was convinced I can't run. And for real, if I try to run, I will see Abraham. My heart will like beat so fast that I'll be dizzy and collapse. So I didn't run, I would just walk. So it was nice. And my sister Juby, we used to go and walk together and we chat. So it was nice. But then one day I found myself all alone. I had no one to walk with and everyone was just running. So I tried to imitate them and I realized, so if I run like this, I can run for longer. That's what motivated me because I wanted to prove that I can run.
5 kilometers was not very informed. Yet you are able.
But I was concerned because I went and I started Googling and looking for blogs, people with the same conditions. And I found out there are people with exactly the same condition as mine that are doing marathons. So I thought, okay, so I can run a 10Ks then. So I thought, okay, I will end with 10Ks. I will just end with 10Ks. So because now I was learning how to run, I think for me, I was shocked that I could run a kilometer and not feel my lungs coming out because if I started running, I would feel dizzy and the whole place would just spin. So now I learned that I could shuffle a little bit and run for about a kilometer without feeling any problem. So that for me, it started as an experiment. If I can do this, let's see. So I started doing it and I started training and I taught myself how to run properly without affecting my lungs. And then boom, there was a 10Ks and I thought, okay, let me sign up. And Dr. Ngagani forced me, made me believe that this Pinky was like, no, it's all in your mind. You can do the 10Ks, you can do. So I went and signed up for the 10Ks. So I trained for it and I got it. I finished. So I started running like that. And now, obviously, for accountability, because I didn't know I could stick it out that long, because you get tired of things very quickly. I decided then to join a running club because then with the running club, you have people with you that are going to do this with you. And I don't like to disappoint people. So I knew if I have a community of people that I can do this with, then I will not slack, I will move forward. That's how I joined the running club. A 10K became a 15K, a 15K became a 21K, but I'm stuck at 21. I can't. And another thing, Doc, because I take hormonal medication, it causes me to gain weight. That run keeps my weight stable. If I can stop running, you won't recognize me the next time you see me. So I think for weight, for health purposes, running was an easy sport. It's cheaper than cycling. So it was an easy sport to do because you can put on your running shoes and go to the road. You don't need to pay anyone to do that. You can do it anytime. And it also helps mentally because being an academic is no fun. It's really no fun at all. And working with people because you come home offended, you're angry. So it keeps that balance that, I need something outside of work. I need something outside of home because even at home, we can offend each other. You need something where you're just going to be happy and you're not going to be offended. So for my mental wellness and also for the my physique and, and just a preventative measure, I had to find that balance. So that is why I'm continuing. I'm going to Two Oceans next week, so you must watch me. Next Saturday, I'm doing my Two Oceans. So it's fun now. It's
a lifestyle now.
That's why I say it's midlife crisis, because it also comes in and it brings in the social part of it as well.
Yes. Doc, ubusy e-university, ubusy uyabaleka, kukho icawe. Doc, I mean, early 40s, mhlawumbi singafumana invites zomtshato. Doc, uyalifumana ixesha loba ukhulume.
Antophosisa Doc, asinto bana ayingomnqweno wam. It's just like bayandoyika abafana. Bayandoyika saying, because I'm available. Seriously, I'm available. Anamdana and Nanixi, I'm available. Somehow I think bayandoyika. And I've got very high standards.
Review Doc.
As revieweki mntasekhaya, as review zikhona ezaa standards apho uqonda ubana apha ndingacompromise apha, zikhona ezi uqonda ubana if ndiyacompromise apha ndiyazibulala, iyabo. And enyanisweni Doc, I'll make an example. The two guys that once approached me, it was a red flag was there from the beginning. They came holding the flag. No. So I think God has been kind to me like that, to see the red flag coming from a distance. So I'm not hiding from them. Yeah. I'm available. I am available. But it doesn't mean that I must compromise myself and say yes to no. I still have to maintain istima. I want to bring honor to my family. I don't want to bring someone who's not honorable, So Dingayana 15 salindile, I'm okay as long as there is honor that comes with the gentleman. That's all I'm asking, to be an honorable person.
La red rope, no. In that town, there's a belief. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but abafana basegqibeka bafuna usetyenzelwa. Iblessa ibe nguwe.
It has some truth. It has some truth, because and not that I'm not talking bad about abafana basepa, but it does have some truth. I've seen Rebecca guys that have worked hard and bamisimiziabo. But I've seen also others who just don't want to do anything, but they are charmers. They can chop you off your feet. But I think that was Steve Apetloko mnanchameki lula. Unganchama ngemali ke uthi zakubhatalela onke amatyala zakubhatalela ibond. Mhlawumbi ndingachameka ke ngoba but anchameki lula.
Doc, as a female who who is who has done so well in the world of academics, in academia. Obviously, you guys have got a responsibility as Black people and also as a female. So, and the last time I checked with the University of Uyo, when I was still in PE, it was a very conservative environment. I'm sure things have changed 20 years later. So what are you doing, those artificial glass ceilings, as a person now, or saying what are you doing? This thing of lift as you rise kind of situation. What are you doing to make things a little bit better for those who come after you?
Doc, God strategically placed me in a research position in my department, because the only language I can speak better qua pharmacy is the research language, because I'm not a pharmacist. So they when it comes to clinical stuff, I'm clueless. Ndiyafunda nje kuba nabantwana besikolo befunda. But research for me, because when promotions come, they would want to know, what did you do? Like what type of research? And since I took over that position of being the research head in the department, I want to see to it that our female staff members, not necessarily our female, but our young academic staff members, get involved in student supervision. They get involved they apply for grants. And so I try by all means to push them towards that. Because without a grant, you can't run a project. Our projects, because we're laboratory people, we require a lot of money because we need to buy equipment. But you've got other research that may require maybe traveling to different sites, especially the clinical research. So I encourage them to apply for grants. So now this year, I started empowerment programs in our pharmacy research committee. That is now all academics, because your job description, if you're going to apply as an academic, your job description is you must do research. So I can't leave them neglected and me move alone. I have to empower them. So we started an empowerment program, starting with how to review a document, a proposal, how to review a proposal, how to apply for a grant, and the importance of applying for a grant. And another thing, I am forcing everyone else around them that if your colleague wants 2 weeks away to complete a grant application, you must stand in for them, because that's another challenge where you've got the passion, you've got the desire, but you don't have the support, you don't have the backing from your colleagues, where they'll say, okay, we can swap dates. While you're busy, I will be teaching. While you're busy with your proposal writing, I'll be teaching. And so I'm trying to create that environment that let's support one another. If I want to take a month off to apply for a grant application, NRF grants, it's like a module. You can't just do it in 1 week. You need the whole month. So you can negotiate with your staff member. So I'm trying to bring that culture. And also I'm motivating young academics to start supervising the 4th year mini projects, so that they get the hang of supervision. And then now from there, because they are clinicians, they need to tutor students. Now we're moving to tutorship now, because you find out other staff members, they don't know much about it. They don't even know what. So I'm starting these empowerment programs so that next year, nobody comes to me and they say, but I don't know how to do it. Then I'm going to say, go back to the recordings and listen, because we did it, So that is my desire, to move forward people and not move forward alone. I want 5 years from now, I want to see my staff members moving a level higher to their, if you are an associate, at least move to being a lecturer. If you are a senior lecturer, at least move to being an associate lecturer. So that is my heart, to see the people around me moving forward, especially the ones that feel neglected, And also I mentioned, I'm a disciplinarian, the ones that are too scared. I have my colleague who's not talking to me because I was just strict with him, said, no, you're going to do it, because he wasn't feeling confident enough. And I said, no, you've got the skill, you've got the qualification, you must do it. Next time when I have this, you're going to present. And the way she looked at me, and I need to get them out of that comfort zone and push them forward, because that's the only way they will move forward. So from my environment where I am, that is where I have control over. Not that I'm in control, but that is where I can contribute. And I hope in the next 2 years, I can move to a more bigger space and help others now in a more broader scope than within the department. So I'm also a baby in this journey of empowerment.
Yes. Doc, there's a couple of comments that have come through. uZoliswa Ntsoko, my friend, I'm very proud of you. Luther Vandross and Vanessa Williams, UTJ, you are an old soul. Uzianda Mavumengwana, is one of the people that I normally feature here on the channel. Uti Sisndoki, such wisdom and humility. And then there's Sma Mahaule, utege omnyumuntu usimamkele nojaholo. Nedisabande uti also so true Ntoki. Nedisabande uti you still live those values, my friend. Those values was fundiswepa ekaya gudada. And you also have got again Nedisabande ati integrity talk with raised hands. Uzoliswa Ntsoko again, 3 hearts, about integrity. Ulela Salman is just happy, that you're doing so well. This interview is just so good. Uti, I used to copy from her the way you all clever guy. I don't know. Oh yeah, Uzoliswa, which I used to copy from her, and she was a sprinter and a good singer. So I called on all right. As we close our chat talk, what would you like to say, to the young people who are still looking at either entry into university or advancing beyond undergrad, and those who wish to do a PhD but are intimidated by what it requires? What message do you have to encourage those who are coming behind?
First of all, Doc, I'm going to start with the parents. Yes. I know most of the people you've called, those are my high school friends.
Yes.
And they have children. I know one of them, the child is in varsity now. They all have children. The only thing I can say to them first is that listen to your children's dreams and be their groupie, be their cheerleader. If you cannot have your mother or your father as your groupie, because when you are a groupie, most we all groupies, Guy Will Smith, no Chris Rock, no matter what they can do wrong, we don't see anything. You still go for them,
Yeah.
So be your daughter or your son's groupie. And make sure, for me, my dad used to take loans for me to finish school. When I did my master's, I got scholarships. And I used to take home a huge chinchaninzi. And I took that chinchi and I paid all the loans that my dad was still paying for my studies undergraduate. So he took a lot of loans so that I could get my degree, because my parents were old, so he retired, so he didn't have money. But he took loans. He went around and got money. So I paid up all those loans. So that's the first thing I can say, firstly, to the parents. Be your child's cheerleader, because they will flourish when they know that when they fail, they can cry on your chest. And you will be the first person to say, don't worry, Mdanam, go back. Start there. Don't be angry. You're disappointed because but don't be angry privately, but comfort your child and encourage them. That was a gift God gave me with my parents.
Yeah.
Secondly, to the young ones, there's a verse in the Bible that says, it's in Proverbs, that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. There is society and standards. They will tell you, because Johnny Ben that's just what society tells us. That is your understanding. And but when you trust God with all your heart and dream bigger than what the society tells you, So which means that if you are going to cross River Jordan, first thing is your understanding is that you're going to drown if you cross.
Yeah.
So you're going to sit at the shore and sit and be an old man sitting on the shore. But if you are serious about crossing River Jordan, where's the level of the water going, and then you move. The more you move forward, the more you become encouraged, the more opportunities come your way, the more you see, because the view is different when you are further down than when you're sitting on the shore. So, Doc. Anyone who, if you can get into a varsity, it means you know how to think. So push yourself. If you fail, get back up and do it again. Continue. Otherwise, I would have never got it. And just to be honest, dafika kwi-honors, dafika natshona imodule napha. Ndangesenantloni ndayifihla zange ndixelele mntu. Hey, ndafika ndatshona. Wathi ndayiphinda ke le module. Hey, yayinzima, inzima. And it took a lecturer, wathi, I know you can do this. I'm going to give you an oral. I did the oral, I failed the oral. But abanye makatshone, wathi, what? Because I'm the HOD, because I pinned the oral, you're going to do it again. And I prayed and I said, I know the way. So I did the oral and I passed it. So it's not going to be an easy journey. There are things you're going to sit under, carpet, do that and not share it with people. But when I believe in yourself, be your own cheerleader, be your own groupie, and don't believe that you are stupid because you're not. And you're never too old to do it. I'm a late bloomer. I got my car late in my late 30s. I got my first full-time job in my late 30s. Your journey.
Trend leyo ke neqabane lizawufika yabona mosifuna late blooming wakho zonke izinto neqabane lizawufika apha
neqabane lizawufika late. But Doc, one thing I can just say to the anyone, do not gauge the success in your life with the same scale as your friend next door. When I lived in Cape Town, I didn't have a house. I didn't have a car. Dandihlala eFront City. Uspoka as my BFF. Wayena moto. Apho ndifuna uya khona ndandikhwela kula moto yakhe. He would take me everywhere. So and I had nothing. They had everything. Abafuna a French guys must see next month. Kind of budget because I didn't have money. I had to accept that things are just going to pass me by because I chose to study full time. Sometimes we tend to scale or to weigh our experiences based on other people's experiences, and yet God has a different lesson for each and every one of us. God has a different story for each and every one of us. While all my friends were flourishing, getting possessions, and none of them has been to UK. None of them have met or interacted with certain people. None of them have seen the countries. None of them have seen the Eiffel Tower. None of them have seen the Vatican, or I can count the things that I saw. And yet I was still poor as a house, as a church mouse. And they had everything. So I didn't have anything. But up here, I had photos.
And insights.
I had photos of things. So at times, look at your life and look at and choose things about your life that they will die to get. And you'll be surprised that there's a lot about your journey that other people around you are desiring to have. It may not be what the world sees, because now what you good doctor ngena moto ndathi ke nangilufundile ndingulufundile that's what you see up and come at such narrow-mindedness. And also watch people that are narrow-minded because they can drag you down. So I would say to people, don't stop dreaming, and don't create a timeline that is and compare it with other people's timeline. Your timeline is controlled by God. Timeline is controlled by God, not even by you. Your timeline is controlled by God.
A saying, Eti, don't measure your success with somebody else's ruler, which is basically what we are saying. Yeah, God, we all have got our own journeys. And Hoyana Nalia lane. Excel lane, and not necessarily look at what's happening on the lane next door. Otherwise,
yes, that's the truth. That's the truth. And that's what I did, because, and I would talk about the Eurostar. Eurostar. Mercedes-Benz, Eurostar, and they don't know what a Eurostar is. Did you know you've never traveled under the ocean? And those are stories I treasure in my heart, and no amount of money that can take away that experience. And I said, no, you tell your story in your beautiful cars and your beautiful house and your beautiful children. You can tell that. So that's your story. It's a beautiful story. I have mine. Mine is different. Mine is different. It's not going to be like yours. So when I eventually got my PhD, I was lucky that I had friends that never undermined me. I had friends that were gunning for me, and my family, they were all there for me. But then you had people who will just come, you're not even buying me my underwear, so leave me alone. Let me do what, So you will have those people that will come and they will have comments, but then you will have your friends that understand your dreams and they will support you. I was blessed. When I was in Cape Town, my friends were by my side all the time. My family, they were all by my side. So I think we need to make sure that even us as the society, let's not try to dictate, because as human beings, our standards are flawed. We cannot enforce our standards to other people. Uzaba pharmacist, Pinda. Uzaba pharmacist clever ukogqitha uNicole lo Basile. Andijonga umntana lile athi but ma'am ibhasari this did awujonile kaloku wena makhe silibali indaba ebhasari but uzawuphinda, and I'll make sure uba uyapasa, and xa ugqibile uzaba yifama. Ukhona nangoku omnye oyipharmacist kuze kunjani ba yipharmacist ahleke because the way wayilila ngayo officini yam, and because she was comparing herself with other people, and I said don't worry, eventually you will be a pharmacist and you will buy your mother a house. Don't worry that other people are overtaking you. That's your journey. And when you're going to even have more strength than those people, because era akayazi how to deal with that disappointment. But when are you stronger than them? Soft skills, those are skills that I make sure that every student that comes through these hands, they leave the university with soft skills, how to live and accept life outside comfort zone, and being resilient, being a person of integrity, grit, all those things. I enforce it to them. And so when you leave this degree, I want you to live with these things, because this is what will define you as the person in the field. Because if you don't have these skills, without digi patience, also understand, also because don't have any empathy.
Thank you very much. We've had a very, very, very interesting 2 hours. Because we are gifted up we can talk.
We can go to 4 hours.
Exactly. Yeah, but yeah, installment number 1. So the two men just on you usondela pha uprof uzukizwa uzingela ophethe pha xa uthe wafumana isikorobho esiphezulu kunesi ukuso sawuphinda sikubize sithi masibuye sincokole. Yeah, but anyway, Doc, thank you very much, man. I hope through sharing your journey, many people have been inspired. Many people know that not everything is planned. Sometimes you think that your life is chaotic. And the big man upstairs, he's got his own plans. And that's how you got to do your honors. That's how you got to do your masters, how you got to do your PhD. And just what you've done in the last 5 minutes of this interview tells me that there is somebody out deep within you, who's a motivational speaker of some kind, not about motivational speaker, on amaphepha emva kwalo motivational speaker nejasi ebomvu yabona nantsiya yes umhlobo wami omnye umhlobo wami ogqiba ufumana i-PhD uyakhala namhlanje hayi iduru le-red ntoni ndithi mfondini ngeke aboyithenga ungarendi aboyithenga enzela uba ihlale phaa kwakho izinyanya mane zibuya ke zibuke zifit. I'm just being silly, but the point is it's a lot of work. That's what I'm told by people who have gone through the journey. It's a journey that I'm still kwi-infancy yayo mna, but nam ngenye imini ndawuthi ndifike ndawukhwaza ke Doc ndithi hayi nam ndanayo ke ngoku le nto ibomvu uyayibona.
Ndawuyiyizela Doc, ndakuyiyizelela.
Yes. Okay, Doc. Thank you very much, man, and thank you to everybody who joined in. It's a longish interview, but it's going to be available on YouTube so that anybody who would like to have a better understanding, of Dr. Ntokozo Dambuza, they can just go into YouTube and they'll be able to have this. Even nabantwana nabazukulwana in 50 years from now, they can go to YouTube and still get this interview. So thank you very much, Doc. I appreciate your time. To have 2 hours of somebody's time on a Sunday, it's not something one can take for granted, but also anyone who joined in to follow this interview, we appreciate you. We appreciate your time. May you have a very safe and productive week ahead. So ngalo mazwi ke ndiyabulela kakhulu.
Thank you kakhulu. I feel honored, Doc. Thank you so much.
Enkosi kakhulu ke Doc. All right then. Bye. Thank you to everybody.